The depot dust rose like judgment. She stood in it with her trunk roped shut, hat brim pinned to the noon glare. The word nuisance slipped beneath the cord by the station agent's neat hand. He tapped the placard and spoke too loudly. "You can't lie about here, miss. We are not a poorhouse." Lenka Novak held her back straight. Where she came from, a straight back kept bread when pride was all you had. She had come west on a letter and a promise. The letter had softened from being read. The promise failed to arrive on the morning train. The agent flipped a ledger to nowhere. No hiring notice. No employer to claim you. The board says you're creating a scene. He lifted the scrap again. Nuisance. Cruelty is tidy when it has a desk. Then a bearded man with a sun-narrowed gaze stepped from the freight office, pausing in the shade like a man who weighed things before he took hold. Caleb Hart did not hurry. He glanced from the sign to the woman to the agent as if setting a scale true. "What's written is not the thing that's standing," he said. "What's standing is a woman with a trunk." He folded the scrap and pocketed it. The agent flushed. "Hart, this is none of your business." "Most things worth doing begin that way," Caleb said. He turned to Lenka. "Do you know figures?" She knew them in German and in English and in the country where a dowry is counted in hens and workdays. "I kept a household's accounts. I taught children to add by seed and cup. My ledgers run wild," he said, the corners of his mouth altering in a way not quite a smile. "I pay a fair wage for penmanship and sense. There's a room on my porch with its own door and lock. It is not charity, and it binds you to nothing you do not choose. If you'd be useful, Miss Novak, come." The agent clicked his tongue. "You'll have to talk, Hart." "Talk is a mule that moves whether you hitch it or not," Caleb said. "I'd sooner tie it to something that won't shame me." He lifted the trunk as if it were an ordinary thing and not the last wall of a life. Lenka's breath fluttered. She caught it. "Sir," she said, "people will think what they want." "They always have," he answered. "A man is the door he keeps. Mine opens where I say." He nodded toward the wagon. "Right up front or walk behind, as you like. You'll be safe from me and from my yard." The agent was calling for the deputy, the word nuisance riding the air like a burr. Lenka laid her palm on the trunk handle as if blessing it, then let go. "I will come," she said, and the decision cleared her voice like wind clears smoke. They crossed the platform. On the street, the heat carried horses and wet canvas. Caleb set the trunk in the wagon. "We settle wages on paper," he said, taking the reins. "You'll keep tallies, receipts, and routes. Find where our teams lose time and blood. You answer to me and to sense, and if I am not fit?" she asked, because fear had followed her trains like a stray dog. "Then you'll leave with pay clean in your hand," he said. "A fair account is a kind of shelter." He flicked the team forward. The wagon moved like a decision once made. The town thinned into pale distance. She watched the prairie roll, quiet except for the tackles talk. "Mr. Hart," she said, trying his name, "what made you offer?" "You tied your trunk neat and your chin did not argue with your feet," he said. "Also, I need order. A man keeps out of widowhood's drift by making lists and honoring them." Wind pressed her brim and lifted the blue ribbon. "Where I come from," she said, "my mother said a name is a roof a family carries." Caleb tipped his hat. "Then we'll build with what we've got, and keep the weather out as best we can." The road lifted toward his yard, where wagon tongues stood like spears and cottonwoods held thin shade. The porch was narrow but straight. A door waited with its latch set true. In the yard, a blackbird hopped, bold as a foreman. Lenka did not smile yet. She touched the rail, smooth where a hand had learned it. She could work here. She could be useful. It was not home, but it faced that direction. "A man is the door he keeps," she whispered, anchoring the words where promises blow thin. "Same for a town," Caleb said from the steps. "We'll see what this one means to be." The porch boards held the day's heat. Caleb set her trunk inside the small room and stepped back. A narrow bed, a washstand and chipped basin, one hook for her dress, a window catching the cottonwoods. He pointed to the key. "You keep it. Yard bell at 6. I ride out at first light. You'll find coffee on the stove and a ledger bigger than my patience." She unpinned her hat. "We settle wages," she said. He passed her a penciled paper, lines already ruled. $2 a week to start. Board included. Sunday's free. If you find $3 I've been throwing away, you keep one. I don't pay in promises. Write it down." She wrote, Lenka Novak, bookkeeping and order. She tucked the paper into her skirt band and followed him to the office. The freight office smelled of wood and old tobacco. On the desk lay a drift of receipts and tally slips. A hand-drawn map sagged like tired hide. Caleb set a crate for her chair. "Don't make it pretty," he said. "Just true." "True is the only pretty that pays," she answered, laying out slips into families. "Feed, wheelwright, livery, ferry, doctor. Give me a list of teams and hands." He gave names like fence posts, Pike, Raleigh, Mendez, two trees, the twins called Noel and Noel, one born on Christmas, the other baptized by a foreman who couldn't think better. She copied clean columns. Outside chains knocked metal. A horse blew. Lenka kept her face like a blank ledger. Caleb leaned toward the desk. "Some will say it isn't fit," he said. "A woman keeping books under my roof. Some will always say," she returned. "In my village it was not fit to let apples rot for fear a widow might pick them. It keeps the sums from straying," she said, tapping a column that did not add. "Here, you paid for a broken axle twice. Pike and Raleigh," he said. "They feud. Root them apart," she said. "And post a rule that a man is his own axle. If he breaks what he could have spared, the pay comes off his pride first." "That'll hold," he said. She drew a fresh sheet for routes. "Your east trail crosses Cotton Creek at the Willow Ford. Receipts for oats spike after rain. Teams bog down," he admitted. "We throw feed to keep them pulling. Shift upstream to the gravel bed," she said. "Add 20 minutes to save an hour knee-deep." She penciled a curve on the map and, for the first time since stepping off the train, felt the pleasure of a problem breaking open. By afternoon, the paper heap had ribs under skin. Caleb brought a tin plate, bread, beans with a chip of salt pork, and an apple quartered. She ate slowly. The office changed because she put her hands on it, not because she was polite. Near dusk, Mendez stuck his face through the door. "Boss, the station agent sent word," he said. "Says you fetched yourself a nuisance and set her at your desk." His glance flicked to Lenka, then back. Caleb said, "Tell him my desk is my business, and my business is better already." Mendez nodded and vanished. Lenka wrote a last line under the day's work. Cash on hand, scarce but honest. He stood at the door. "Tomorrow I'll bring the route books from the wagons," he said. "You can see where a day really bends." "Tomorrow I will be here," she answered. "And the day will bend where the numbers tell it to." He considered her. "Supper's at the table," he said. "You're welcome." He kept his voice practical. "Porch door stays yours. No one sets a boot on that step without asking. Cards and liquor stay in the bunkhouse. If any man forgets, he forgets his wages with it." She nodded. "And your family?" "A boy," he said. "Evan, at my sister's this month. He's all the family I name." For later, she touched the pencil to the ledger's gutter. "Thank you," she said, "but I'll eat on the porch tonight." She would not give rumor easy kindling. He nodded and left her to close up. She locked the office and felt the quiet of the keys. On the porch, the air had cooled. The cottonwoods whispered. She ate her apple and counted balances in her head. Fear spent, dignity earned, talk accounted for. The yard bell rang once like a blessing. Horses settled. Men's voices drifted. Behind her door, the room waited. She set her trunk at the bed's foot and laid the key on the sill where starlight could find it. She did not pray out loud. She counted instead. Minutes, measures of courage, the small arithmetic by which a woman finds the corner that will hold. Then she slept. Hammers spoke before the sun cleared the cottonwoods. Lenka was at the desk with her sleeves rolled and hair tight as a promise. The yard bell tied the morning. She sharpened pencils, stacked tallies by wagon, and nailed a slate to the office post. Roots. Today. Men slowed to read in spite of themselves. She spread the wagon books, pages stiff with dust, and laid them like a map of mistakes. "These show where the day leak," she said. Caleb stood behind her, quiet as a fence line. His hands had learned wood and rope, and he was done talking to fools. She drew boxes for time, crossed out the Willow Ford, and penciled a clean arc to the gravel bar. Pride had its cost. She wrote the tariff where teamsters could see it. By mid-morning, the office door stopped slapping. Men came with questions and left with a plan. Pike went north with sacks bound high. Water at the windmill skipped the low draw. Raleigh went south, a feud ended by a line on a page. She shifted 2 mules from the twins to Mendez, who could talk to the mules without swearing at them. Two Trees read the slate twice, lips moving, then hitched with tighter hands. Near noon, a driver rattled in anger, one wheel hot and singing. Lenka kept her voice plain. Bucket sand. She showed him how to lift the axle, pack the heat, and limp to the smith without seizing. He left, still swearing, with respect in it. Caleb set a tin cup by her hand. The coffee argued. "You've got them reading before they know they can," he said. "I didn't hire a schoolmarm." "I'm a ledger that walks," she answered. She hunted doubles and found a livery overcharge. Noel came back with coins and a proud face. "An oversight," he reported. "He eats that word with his bread," she said, and wrote "refund received" where all could see. Caleb's mouth moved at the corners, not quite a smile. The slate is filled. Wagons rolled steadily, not bunched like cattle. The yard's noise arranged itself. Harness rings, men's talk, a hammer striking true. "You ought to keep an apron," Mendez said, nodding at the chalk. She looked at the smear and did not blush. "An apron is a promise to stay," she said. The men heard and stood a touch straighter. Dust lifted on the east road. Raleigh back too soon with a man slumped beside him, face gray, shirt dark. "Cut at that damned willow crossing," Raleigh gasped. Lenka had the water hot by the time they lowered him to the shade. "Boil more," she told Two Trees. "You," to Noel, needle and blade. She washed the wound until it stopped bleeding, set stitches small and even, bound the arm, and set the bone firm. When the man slept, she wrote on the slate, "Willow Ford closed." Caleb added, "By order," and signed so all could see. When the bell rang for supper, she reached for her plate to take to the porch, but the bench at the long table had a space waiting. Mendez lifted his chin. "Sit," he said. She paused just long enough to make it decent, then sat with her back to the wall. Beans, bread, onion, and a crock of beets somebody had saved for one good day. It tasted like a door starting to open. Talk ran easily because work had. They spoke of the gravel crossing, of sand in a hot hub, of stitches that held when a man breathed deep. Pike raised his cup. "To the ledger that walks," he said, and knuckles thumped the board. Heat climbed Lenka's throat that wasn't from coffee. Caleb watched without watching. When the plates emptied, he stood. "Rules go up in the morning," he said. "No man is his partner's axle. If you break what sense would have spared, your pay carries the load." Murmurs. Nods. Fairness has a sound that men recognize. A few smiled despite themselves. Dusk made copper of the sky. On her porch rail lay a folded cloth, an apron, blue-striped. No note. She ran the ties through her fingers and then hung them on the hook without putting them on. Promises don't take on the first day. They need airing. It felt like a neighborly silence. The yard settled. Caleb paused at the office door. "You held them like a good bit," he said. "I only showed the road your work had already laid," she answered. "Maybe," he said. "But they're pulling in the same direction now." She closed her door, set the key on her palm, and lay down with chalk and boiled linen in her hair. Outside, hammers went quiet one by one like a heartbeat finding its pace. She slept in the small victory, knowing it was the right size for a beginning. The apron hung like a question. Dawn cooled the yard. Lenka washed the night from the basin and tied the blue stripes at her waist, not as a pledge but as a tool. Chalk dust climbs. Cloth keeps faith. Caleb's boots sounded once on the step and then waited. He was a man who knocked without rapping. "Wagons make the west run today," he said. "And my sister wired. Evan's coming on the noon car. A boy needs a table to come home to," she answered, and did not ask if she was invited. The morning took hold. She sketched a cleaner tally for harness repairs and posted a note. "Save 4 buckles each week. Buy a spare trace in a month." Men read and said nothing, which meant they liked the arithmetic. Two Trees showed a latigo-stitched square. "Learned it from your hands," he said. By 10, the depot whistled. Lenka walked with Caleb to the platform, stopping where the shade began. The agent looked past them. 3 town women by the feed store made a neat circle of talk. The train gave up a boy with wind in his hair. Evan Hart wore a clean shirt buttoned to his throat, the cautious courage of a lad who has watched the world take things and is not ready to hand it anything else. Caleb kneeled. "You've grown." "The world does that to boys," Evan said, as if quoting. He looked at Lenka like a question he might answer. "Ma'am, Miss Novak keeps our numbers from stealing ours," Caleb told him. Lenka lowered her head to the boy's height. "Sometimes I have a piece of chalk." If a boy had a pocket, it might find its way there. Evan touched his pocket. Back at the yard, Lenka kept to the office until the air uncoiled. She drew him a small slate and wrote his name. Evan Hart. The letters stood like fences holding a field. Your name is a roof, she said. It keeps the weather off the ones inside. We fix holes by learning the lines. He watched, solemn and hungry. She put the chalk in his hand. He drew the E too eagerly and knocked the V crooked, then set his jaw and fixed it. Caleb lingered in the doorway the way men do when they don't want to spook a colt. Near noon, she fetched a small thing from her trunk, a tin of plum jam saved from traveling. She set it on the table. Use it or it turns, she said. At dinner, it went on bread and 4 careful spoons. Evan counted each one. Talk ran around the boy the way a stream parts and meets again. Pike told a gentle lie about a fish too smart to be caught. Mendez made a whistle from straw. Evan blew once, then tucked it away as if joy were contraband meant for later. After eating, Lenka taught him to tally by 5s. Wagon wheels count quarters of hours, she said. 4 notches make a circle. Mark the day with circles you can carry. He nodded like a man agreeing to a trade. Caleb said, If numbers had spurs, you'd have them shod. Numbers are quiet horses, she said. They go where you point if you keep a rein. The station agent's runner brought a folded sheet. Lenka took it to keep Caleb's hands on work. The words were clean, but the meaning wasn't. A notice about community standards signed by merchants and a churchwoman. She weighed it with the ink bottle. I'll answer after the routes are drawn, Caleb said. A man who argues before he counts loses twice. Truth balances on patience, she said. Evan sat on the step and scratched a list. Buckles 4. Trace 1, jam gone. He looked for a smile and got one that reached her eyes. The afternoon brought a colt gone sideways in a harness. Lenka did not run. She walked with the halter quietly, spoke softly to the fear and set her palm where the animal could see it. The colt breathed until it remembered how. You handle greenstock like numbers, Caleb said. Just the next right inch. Men and horses both count steps, she said. By dusk the sky went rose and then clean. Evan dozed against his father on the porch, chalk in his pocket, his name drying on the office board. Lenka washed the cups and set them to drain, wiped the table slowly, polishing a thought. A house is the things we do in it, she said to the room. If we do them right, the walls will show up. A coyote sounded far off. The world minded its business. The apron, untied now, hung from the chair back like a flag of truce accepted. The wind came knife-edge off the flats. By mid-morning, the yard was a loom, lines crossing, weight shifting, men reading the slate. Lenka checked the harness list with Evan at her elbow, his chalk tucked. Caleb walked the tongues, tapping bolts with a hammer, listening for the note that meant fatigue. A shout ripped the weave. Pike's wagon lurched at the gate, the right wheel climbing the rail. The tongue bit, splintered, and the load slid. Mendez jumped, missed, and the sacks came down like a wall. When the dust settled, he was under the sideboard, breath ragged, eyes wide. Don't move him, Lenka said, voice flat enough to hold. Blocks, chain, 4 men on the pry, on my count. She pulled Evan back with a hand you couldn't argue with. You stand by the water barrel and watch my eyes. Caleb had the chain in his fist in a heartbeat. 2 Trees is already shoving cribbing under the hub. Fulcrum here, she said, pointing to a cross timber. Not there. You'll crush his ribs. Men looked at her, then at Caleb. He nodded. Lenka pressed her fingers into Mendez's neck, pulse fast, thready. Lips are the wrong color. Can you feel your toes? She asked. Pins, he whispered. Fire. Good. Pain is a road. Stay on it. She tore her apron into bands. You, to Pike, boil water. Huey, to Noel, bring the clean sack from the grain shed. If there is no clean sack, bring the least dirty. They levered on the count, chain singing. The sideboard rose an inch, then 2. Hold, she said and slid the sack beneath, making a sleeve. Now lift to 3 and don't drop. Caleb, take his shoulders. I've got the hips. They drew him clear onto planks that had been a door once. She ran her hands quickly over bone. The left leg lay wrong, the shin making a step where God had drawn a straight line. No blood bright enough to kill fast. Belly taut. Whiskey, Pike offered. Later, she said. I need his head clear. She set Evan to pour water over her hands. Count slow, she told him. He did, and his voice steadied hers. She made a splint from plank slats, wrapped with the bands, pulled the foot until the line ran true, then tied it with knots that would forgive swelling. Mendez cursed her in Spanish and then apologized in the same breath. She bound his ribs with what was left of the apron, each wrap a promise to the next. Caleb crouched, jaw set. His belly? We watch it, she said. If it goes hard and his eyes go far, we send for the doctor and keep him still. But I think the worst we can fix. The station agent drifted to the gate, tongue ready. This is what comes of turning a freight yard into a parlor, he said. Women fussing over, Caleb turned. There's a man on the ground, he said. Pick up a bucket or go sell your paper hats in some other breeze. The agent found other work. Lenka set Mendez's head in the crook of her lap, kept his breath counted, and wet his lips. When the water boiled, she washed the scrapes with a cloth meant for Sunday. She stitched where the skin gaped, small and even, her needle a stubborn idea. Say your boy's name, she told Mendez. Tomas, he managed. Say it again. He said it, and the saying kept him fenced in. When they carried him to the bunkhouse, she walked with her hand on the plank. Evan walked with the empty basin. Back at the office, she wrote the accident as clean as a ledger. Loose load, tongue fatigue, no inspection mark. Below it, she posted a new rule. Tongues tapped daily. Loads lashed. Pride captain appointed. She underlined appointed twice and wrote the name above it. Evan Hart. The boy stared. Me? You count and you don't lie to numbers, she said. Stand where men can see you. Look at the tongue and listen for the note. If it's wrong, you say so, and a man who laughs answers to me. Caleb looked at his son like the day had found a hinge and swung wider. A captain keeps men safe with small things, he said. You can do that, Evan nodded. He stood straighter then. By dusk, Mendez slept with the whiskey at last in him and a prayer over him, whether he wanted it named or not. Pike came to the office door with his hat off. You kept him breathing, he said. We all did, she answered. We lifted where we stood. Caleb set a hand on the jam. You run a crisis like you run a sum. I run both by inches, she said. And I keep the count. The wind turned and the world went white. By noon, the light went colorless. Lenka looked up and prepared. She posted a rule. No wagon leaves after 3, and weighed it with a hammer. Caleb came from the smith with frost in his beard. Pike and the twins went early, he said. Raleigh took the south loop. If they keep the gravel bar, they'll make it. If they keep their sense, she said. Blizzards erase that first. Evan held his slate like a shield. What do I do? Keep fire and ring the bell every 30 breaths, she said. Hot stones by the stove, blankets on the rail, water warm as a palm. If a man staggers in, count his words before you give him whiskey. Caleb met her glance. We'll bring them in, he said. By 2, the snow went sideways. The yard shrank to the size of the bell's voice. A wagon clawed through the gate. Noel slumped, the other Noel hauling the reins. Raleigh's behind, Noel shouted. The creek bit him. He tried the low crossing. Lenka felt the map in her hands, though it was inside. Drift will stack to the hawse, she said. He'll be under the bed. Caleb had a coil of rope over his shoulder. 2 trees threw quilts into a crate. Pike, half frozen, turned back. Lenka wrapped a scarf until only her eyes had anything to say. Tie me second, she told Caleb. I'll hear the creak where you won't. He nodded and nodded her in. 2 trees took third, Pike 4th, and a spare length went to the sled they dragged for a body that was not going to be a body if she could count the inches between breaths right. They stepped into the white. The bell faded, then returned, then went. Wind found every seam. Caleb leaned into it. The rope drew a straight line when nothing else did. Lenka shut her eyes against the sting and listened. Storms have a grammar. She sorted the hiss of driven flakes from the grunt of the team, from the far rattle that could be a chain on frozen wood. Left, she called. Lee of the fence. They felt it, the wind eased. At the creek, the world was a rumor. She crouched, gloved to the drift, felt the give that meant water pretending ground. Here, she said, and they skirted until Caleb's boot struck wood. Raleigh lay under the wagon, the bed canted, the right wheel rim iced to a ring. He had done the smart thing and the stupid one, crawled under for shelter and gone quiet. His hands were ruined. Talk to me, Lenka said and smacked his cheek just enough to bring him back. Say your name so I know where to send you. Raleigh, he said through a mouth he couldn't feel. Good, she said. Farther to go. 2 trees quilted his chest. Caleb cut the trace. Pike lift on the count. They freed him like pulling a nail from hard pine, steady, no jerks to widen the break. The sled took his weight. Lenka wrapped his hands in her scarf, then her apron, then quilts, each layer a promise. "Whiskey," Pike said. "Not yet," she said. "It lies about warmth." She kept his eyes on hers and counted aloud to give his breathing something to follow. They moved back the way the rope remembered. At the yard, the bell was a lighthouse. Evan hauled it as if ringing could drag men through snow by their names. He had the door wide and the stones hot. He did not ask. He set his jaw and made room for living. Inside, Lenka's orders were quiet knives. Hands in cool water first, then warmer. Don't rub. Wrap and set near the stove, not on it. Bread and broth before whiskey. She picked ice from Raleigh's lashes with the care of a woman taking burrs from a child's hair. Color came back slowly. Raleigh shivered, the body's mercy, and wept without sound because men do. Caleb stood by the door, shedding snow. He looked at Lenka with something new, not relief only, but recognition. When Raleigh slept and the worst was penned on paper and in the body, the storm still shouldered the house. Lenka went to her porch. Evan followed and stood beside her, chum to silence. "You kept the bell honest," she said. "I counted," he said. "That's how a life comes back, number by number." Inside, Caleb struck the stove lid with the poker and made it ring. "A man is the door he keeps," he said. "And sometimes a woman sets the hinges." She let the words take hold. Snow piled up in the yard. The little room had its own weather now, lamp, breath, and the small arithmetic of what had been saved. She breathed and believed the count. The paper came like a knife wrapped in courtesy. It arrived with the noon post folded neatly, signatures stacked as if weight could make it right. The station agent did not hand it to Caleb so much as present it to the air. Lenka read without blinking, then read again to be sure her calm was earned. "Petition for community decorum," it said. "For the good name of the town, for the protection of commerce and morals, for the safety of men who must not be distracted by impropriety at work." It named no names and meant hers. Caleb's jaw went hard. They could have come to the yard. They did, Lenka said. With a pen, Pike came up. "Agent's gone sweet on Baines," he said. "Baines has his freight papers back in the depot safe. Your roots pinch his oats. Morals are cheaper to parade than numbers," Lenka said. She signed the petition with names already on the feed store ledger. Baines for profit, the control agent, Mrs. Archer for fear and a bonnet, 2 merchants who liked winking books. She set the sheet on the desk like a specimen. Caleb nodded toward the post. "We answer?" "In ink and in work," she said, "and where folks can't pretend they didn't hear." She copied the petition, left off the names, and tacked it beside the roots, today's slate. Beneath she wrote, "Our rules. Doors kept, wages clean, women safe, men answer for their own axles." She left lines for anyone to sign in daylight. Mendez wrote first. 2 trees marked his. Pike printed slowly. By afternoon, the petition had become the yard's weather. Men worked like they were being watched by someone who counted. That made the work better and put a burr under some saddles. Noel of the 2 Noels stood off, then came and stared at the empty lines. He did not write. He walked away with his shoulders wrong, the way a wheel hums before it warms. Evan kept the bell because storms leave habits. Between rings, he held the post as if paper might blow unless a backbone stayed. Near closing, the feed store boy slipped Lenka another fold, eyes sliding. Not a petition. A bill of lading copied in haste showing Hart Freight short 2 sacks the week before. She checked the ledger. Her tallies were tight. The copy showed a route she had never approved. The Willow Ford crossed on a rainy day. A lie dresses itself in what people already fear. "Baines means to make us thieves," she said. Caleb studied the hand and shook his head once. "Noel," he said. "The one who didn't sign?" "Maybe," she said. "Or someone used his name because it sits ready." She lifted the cash box and counted out loud. Evan counted with her, a second rope on the same bell. The sums met on the day. Numbers are a lamp if you keep the soot off. Twilight stretched the yard. 2 town women paused at the gate. Lenka spoke so that they could hear without being spoken to. "My door has a key. My work has a ledger. A boy rings a bell, and men eat at a table with both ends. If this is indecent, the word has slipped its saddle." She did not raise her voice. Mrs. Archer looked at Caleb. "Appearances," she said. Caleb tipped his hat. "Ma'am, a house keeps what happens inside it." You're welcome to inspect the books and the porch. If you find a shadow not tracked from the depot, I'll mind it. They did not come in that day. When the lamps were lit, Lenka folded the sheet into the day's records.
We will need a public place, she said.
Her eyes went to the depot platform, the agent's stage. Somewhere a letter can be read where it was written. Caleb nodded. Freight contracts post Friday. Folks will gather. We'll nail our answer there. Bring your men in their plain hands, she said. Let the town see what keeps it fed. Outside, Noel hovered, turned away. He rattled the gate latch once, then twice, and walked on fast. Lenka watched and felt a pull she did not like. Gates forget at night when someone whispers to them. She wrote under tomorrow's routes. Gate pins checked by 2. It is the kind of order that sounds fussy and light and saves a life in the dark. Evan stood with his chalk. Do I stand second? You stand while you can see, she said, touching his shoulder. A count, not a caress. Above the yard, the depot lamps threw a circle of borrowed day. Inside that light, men drew up contracts and favors. In the dark beyond, the freight yard held by habit and posts and the names people were willing to sign where others could read them. The gate whispered open against the dark. Lenka woke before the hinge finished talking. She was on the step with the key in her fist. Snow held the yard's light in a low bowl. Somewhere a latch clicked again. Evan, she whispered. The boy rose from his blanket by the bell, chalk in his pocket. Pins. They moved as if counting. 1, 2, checking the gate posts she had marked that afternoon with a small cross no saboteur would copy. 1 cross gone. 1 pin pulled. Lantern light brushed the hay shed, too yellow, too low. Kerosene travels fast. Caleb was there, coat half on, rope over his shoulder. South side, Lenka said. Someone means us to run. Or burn, he answered. The lantern dipped. A shape hunched. Noel? Caleb called, voice flat. Noel, the twin who had not signed, snapped his head up. He had the pin in his hand. Don't be a fool, Caleb said. Noel flung the lantern. It broke in a sheet of fire. Hay whooshed like a breath taken wrong. Sand, Lenka said. Evan ran. Blankets, she called to the bunkhouse door. 2 trees came with wet sacks, Pike with a shovel, Raleigh with his wrapped hands. The flames wanted to climb. Edges, she snapped. She dropped a wet blanket where the fire licked clean the floor and smothered the mouth before it could speak a bigger word. Pike shoveled sand into the heart. 2 trees beat the flare that tried the rafters. Behind them, mules screamed. A second figure swung the corral latch. The team shouldered the open. Caleb hit the gap first. Rope sang and caught a halter. A mule struck and the kick took him high on the shoulder. He grunted and did not fall. Bell, Lenka called. Evan rang as if sound could stitch a yard together. Men came with their boots half on and their courage right side up. They closed the flank, turned the lead with low voices. Noel ran for the side gate. Raleigh stepped to block and took a shove. He went down, air gone. The second figure, the station agent's runner, saw more men than planned and slipped back into the dark. Let him go, Caleb said through his teeth. This one talks. He had Noel by the back of his coat now, rope making a hinge of the boy's wrists. The fire found nothing else to eat. Steam rose. Lenka stood in the wet ash, hair sparking where embers had argued. On the office step, Caleb pushed Noel down. The boy was sick with what he had done. Why? Caleb asked, not gently. Baines, Noel said. He said you were bleeding the town. Said there'd be a bonus if a mistake showed you unfit. The agent said the same. They said it was for decency. He swallowed. I signed the Willowford lie. The runner wrote it. I wanted a foreman's place. Lenka let the silence sit. You'll say every word again where it was started, she said. Caleb's shoulder had begun to swell. Broken. He asked. Dry out, she said. She set her heel against the chair rung and braced him. On 3, she did not count. She set the bone in a single past tense. He shuddered, then breathed. You're a tyrant who loves order, he said. I am a house that refuses to blow down, she said. They trussed Noel and put him in the office corner with a coat over his head and a bucket at his feet. Mercy takes its own shape. By lamplight, Lenka wrote what night had cost and kept. 2 bales lost, a rope, a scorch on the wall. No man burned, no beast broken through. Numbers have mercy if you bring yours. Pike spat in the snow. Baines won't fight in daylight. That's why we will, Caleb said. Dawn didn't come, but the dark loosened its teeth. The yard steamed. Men found coffee by habit. Evan stood with the bell rope in hand, eyes older by 1 hour. Lenka wiped her hands on a fresh strip of apron and posted a line on the slate. Night, no lanterns near hay. Gates double-latched. Betrayal goes to the depot. She looked at the trussed boy, the set shoulder, the child with the bell. We hold until daylight, she said. Then we carry our count to where the town keeps its mouth. 2 trees flexed a wrist blistered where a coal kissed it. Lenka smeared tallow and bound it. Raleigh sat carefully and counted his breaths. I can buy 1 more, he said. Evan came close. I rang to 30, he said. When I lost count, I started again. She cupped his head, businesslike. That's how you save a bad page, she said. You begin again. Caleb watched them and let his breath settle into the room's order. Dawn hit the depot like a hammer on a pinned hinge. They came in a straight line of wagons, tongues square, traces snug, steam lifting in the cold. Caleb rode ahead with his arm bound, Lenka beside him with the ledger and a copied bill. Evan sat between, bell rope coiled for later. Behind them, men who had slept rough sat up. Friday contracts drew the town. Merchants buttoned coats. Mrs. Archer stood with 2 friends like a fence. The station agent owned the platform. Baines waited under the awning, hat low. Caleb read the notice board. Lenka stepped down and nailed a sheet where contracts lived. Rules of this yard, doors kept. Wages clean, women safe, men answer for their own axles. Beneath it, she set 2 more papers, her tallies and the forged bill that named a crossing she had closed. We'll have no disorder, the agent said. This is a business place. This is business, Lenka said. She did not raise her voice. She aimed it. Caleb tugged Noel from the wagon bed where he had ridden bound. The boy looked 20 and younger both. Speak where you started it, Caleb told him. Noel swallowed. I signed the Willowford lie, he said. Baines said heart was bleeding pride. The agent's runner wrote the words and told me to copy. Last night I pulled the pins and tossed a lamp. A narrow sound ran through the crowd. Baines laughed, late to courage. A boy can say anything with a rope on him. Lenka held up the ledger. These are the hours, she said. Count them where the town can see. Here Raleigh bled at the Willow Ford. Here is the route we run now. Gravel bar, time saved, horses spared. Here is cash that matches work. If any figure asks for a lie, I will rework the page. It has not asked. 2 trees stepped forward, shirt cuff clean over the bandage she'd tied in the night. My mark is there, he said, tapping the rule sheet. Pike set his palm below the mark. Mendez lifted his chin. Raleigh put his wrapped hands out where all could see what winter had wanted and what sense had kept. Evan climbed the platform and set his slate beside the ledger. Evan Hart, pry captain. Beneath it, he'd written the day's count. Gate pins, set, lanterns, damned, tongues, tapped, appearances. The agent tried again, but the word felt used up. A woman at figures, a boy on a bell. A yard that keeps its people, Caleb said. He faced Baines. You sent a boy to do your night work. Baines tipped his hat back. Prove it. Lenka's gambit was as simple as a tally. She passed the copied bill to Mrs. Archer. Read it, she said. Read the route, Mrs. Archer read, stumbling because the crowd listened. Willow Ford. And yesterday's snow, Lenka said, makes that a death wish. Yet the copy shows the old way. The original lives here. She turned to the freight clerk in the doorway. Fetch it. The clerk fled inside. When he returned, his hands shook. The original bill bore Lenka's pencil arc to the gravel bar and her note, Willow closed by rule. The clerk's eyes found the agent and then steadied. Runner said to keep the copy, he muttered. Said Mr. Baines preferred it. Some truths make their own weather. The crowd's weight shifted. Men who owed Baines favors measured the price of standing under his awning. Caleb slackened Noel's rope. You'll answer before the justice, he said. But you'll eat and mend. A man can start again if he signs under the right line. Baines twitched toward the runner at the edge. Caleb didn't move. Pike did, 2 trees did. The runner's brave feet chose elsewhere. Lenka tacked the forgery and the truth under her rules. Let the town keep the papers, she said. Let gossip drag its net and come up with facts. The agent's smile went thin. You've made your speech, he said. Now take your trouble back to your yard. Our yard feeds this depot, Caleb answered. Today we brought what keeps it clean. Silence held. Then the deputy shouldered through. He took Noel by the arm. The boy stood straighter. "I'll want statements," he said. He looked at Baines and the agent last. "From everyone. Contracts went up today. Men still signed. Goods still moved." But the crowd did not forget the rules under the roots, and no one laughed when Evan counted as he coiled the bell rope. 1, 2, 3, until the sound of order lay over the platform like snow that would not be trampled. Caleb turned to Lenka. His eyes carried the storm and the morning's choice. "We held," he said. "We counted," she answered. "Counting is a way of holding." Dusk settled on the porch like a signed paper. The yard steamed. Hay raked clean. Gates latched twice. Caleb's shoulder rode square under the band. A man repaired by inches and intention. Lenka hung her apron and went back to work. Some flags are raised by work, not wind. Evan chalked a small circle on the step and another, quiet as breathing. 2, he said. For yesterday and today. Tomorrow gets its own, she answered. Never borrow circles. The deputy took statements. The runner vanished. Noel sat on a bench with a blanket for heat. He asked to work off what a night had cost, and Caleb set him to hauling water until the pails steadied. They ate early, bread, stew heavy with carrot, coffee thin but honest. Mrs. Archer came up the path with a jar of preserves and a hand on her throat. I was wrong to sign, she said to the air, then to Lenka. Numbers are a better fence than rumor. Fences keep stock, Lenka said. Tables keep people. She set the jar on the shelf and wrote Archer plum on the day's page. Gifts accounted for are lighter to carry. As for contracts, Caleb said, standing where a man's words naturally gather, this town likes things written. He turned to Lenka. Miss Novak, if you've the mind, I'll post a contract that keeps better than gossip. Take my name and let this porch be ours. He did not kneel. He was already on the ground where men stand when they mean to hold. She looked past him to the yard, mules blowing, men talking low, a boy with chalk, and then into him where winter had left its line. A name is a roof, she said. If yours will hold me and the boy, I will keep it mended. It will, he said, and the words held still. They walked to the justice with the sun tipping west. The book was plain. The vows were plainer. Evan stood beside them with his slate. When the justice asked for witnesses, half the yard cleared their throats at once. Mrs. Archer said, Amen at the right place, and no one minded. Lenka Hart, the justice read back. The name held outside the wind stood down. Caleb touched the brim of her hat and then, shy as first rain, her cheek. Home, he said. They returned to the porch that had started all this. Lenka set the lamp so travelers could tell where sense kept a door. Evan traced his new last name on the post where the weather would have to deal with it. Noel stacked wood without being told. Caleb brought the freight brand and burned a small mark beneath the rail. Smoke curled sweet as cedar, and the beam did not flinch. Lenka opened the ledger to the first clean page after a long mess. At the top she wrote, Hart Freight, Winter Routes. Beneath it she drew 3 lines like calm rivers, gravel bar in ink, Willow Ford crossed out for good. In the corner she made a small private column. Assets, 1 roof, new name. 1 boy, bell true, 1 man, door kept, 20 good hands. Courage sufficient, liabilities, weather. Talk, payable by work. Caleb sat with his back against the rail. I never thought a porch could widen a country, he said. It does when it faces the right way, she answered. Men drifted off in twos. The yard learned a new quiet. From the depot, the agent's window went dark. Baines's awning looked smaller when the street lamps came on and no one stood under it. Evan leaned against Lenka's skirt. How many circles for a year? He asked. 365, she said. But some are bigger, some as small as a lentil, and some a person has to make twice. I can count that, he said. You already have, Caleb told him. You rang our winter back. Lenka lifted the lamp's glass and trimmed the wick. The flame steadied. A house is the things we do in it, she said. We'll keep doing them until the walls can't help but agree. She closed the ledger and rested her palm on the cover, as you might settle a restless child. A team passed, and the driver tipped his hat to the light. Not knowing, he nodded to a story finished and another begun. Word would go out on wagons and wind. The Nuisance had a surname, and the yard kept its people. The stars came up like nails in a sound roof. Somewhere a coyote revised his argument and trotted on. The porch held. This story made history the simple way, by being decent when the day dared men to be less. If this tale steadied you, share it with a friend and follow for more clean, frontier-hearted romances, one porch light at a time.